Belvista Studio Show.
Welcome everybody to the Belvista Studio Show. Today I have a favorite. I'm a fan of you, Nick. You inspire me and I respect you a lot. I think the things that you're researching and developing yourself on, the stuff that you share, always makes me think. And I like that because you help me develop. So I think what initially resonated was the human-centered design stuff, design thinking. You were on that very early. And I've seen some of the examples and stuff that you've shown, or we've had conversations of you playing with, like, this is what's happening in the world of product design and this is what I'm doing with it. And that excites me and I love your energy. So I just want to kind of just recognize you for that, because I think that's fucking awesome. So thank you.
Blushing. Thank you. Shucks.
I need a little blushing emoji to come up.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Yeah.
So the Belvista Studio Show is an opportunity for us to break down solutions that people have created. So Nick's got an example he's going to take us through. What was the business problem you were engaged to solve, and how'd you do it?
Cool. Righto. So it's a bit of a fun one, actually. Basically, the client had another third party do like a big, serious, deep survey. That third party was Melbourne Business School. And when they did this survey, they realized that they needed to address, different types of stigma regarding mental illness, because it just so happens a client was in the recruitment space. And every organization's got, and even society's got, different factors of mental health stigma, right?
Yeah. Now,
the particular type of mental health stigma that they identified is this funny little thing called attribution theory. In short, we as human beings tend to be more forgiving towards people with a physical illness over people with a mental illness. And it's really interesting cluster of stuff going on there, because you could blame Hollywood for the way people with mental illnesses are, portrayed in film.
Yes.
Are they safe or are they dangerous is what it really comes down to. And so what was really cool with this project is we started there at that business objective, and we were able to follow that all the way down into the human brain, right to the core, that little rat brain right in the core, and get down to safe or dangerous. And I'll show you a little bit about the solution as well, so you can sort of see how deep we really went. And it's probably why I wanted to show this project, because it involved working with specialists and doing a lot of research and building things that at some point scared some of our test users and things like that. It was pretty fun, wow, to be honest. So it was a good stretch project. Worked with some fabulous people, particularly the graphic designer and some of the other people I was working with at the time, who were just fabulous people, really passionate about learning. So that also comes through. So the business objective really was fundamentally around making a shift in mental health. So that initial shift about taking care of yourself first and foremost, yep, about being self-aware enough to work on your own human bias, to develop behaviours and put those in front of your behaviour as like a cushion, so then you wouldn't make biased decisions, especially in a particular recruitment context. And I guess really to kind of increase the overall well-being of the organisation and the culture, and make it an actual living part of the culture, which, mind you, this organisation's already pretty fabulous. Hence, they're actually care enough to actually do a project like this. So it's not, it's not like they're like on fire or anything. It's like, look, we care about mental health. It's bloody important. So let's prioritise it the same way many other organisations prioritise ticking boxes and compliance and stuff. So it's really cool to work with a client like that who really cares. Yeah.
Amazing. That's cool. So is this solution something that they mandated for staff to do, or was it a self-enroll, do it if you're interested?
It was kind of in the middle, actually. Yeah. So it was more like, I think they had some different groups. So they said, well, I definitely want to sort of do leaders first, and then kind of want to do like certain people who are really recruitment facing kind of roles. Yeah. But fundamentally it was kind of for everyone. It was sort of an open journey if you wanted to join. It was more of a cultural piece rather than a skills or capability piece, role specific or department specific. And maybe I'll show you some stuff because I want to show where we started, and then I'll show you one of the pieces. Yeah, cool. I'll share my screen. Pictures are always better, right? Better than my face. Yeah. So I think when we first took the approach on this, we landed on the idea that we're going to do a learning campaign, a multifaceted, multi-tiered learning campaign, very much like a marketing campaign. And we're going to attack from all angles. We're going to attack the personal, the physical, and the digital. And so part of this campaign, I mean, this is going on I think 3 years ago, this project, but workbooks, booklets, workshops, posters for the physical kind of presence of stuff, digital, HTML5, video, some Slack, wellbeing support channels, and some podcasts around, mental health and stuff. I guess also the personal, right? So this is like personalized communication about wellbeing. This is like deep in session experience. So this is really coming from things like workshops, like deep in session workshops, and getting that real deep, intimate, personal kind of thing going. Access to experts, and I guess the creation and sharing of personal stories. Yeah. So 3 years ago, I guess this is kind of pretty cool. I mean, progressive. Things do age quickly, but some things don't. I don't think this personal stuff will be timeless forever and ever and ever. This other stuff, well, print might be around for a while, but the digital stuff obviously will change and evolve and whatever. But I think it brings back to kind of my approach of design and stuff. It's always human-centered and then design-led. This digital stuff, I don't care what it is. I do, obviously I do, but it comes second. It's secondary to the human technology, because, So we'll just have a quick look at the learning journey, I guess, fundamentally. Let me zoom in here with my clunky PDF. So it's basically awareness, knowledge, experience, reflection, support, This is a sort of 5-phase journey, and we would, I guess, trickle or drop or deliver these moments of opportunities of learning across you could stretch this thing to be a 2-week thing, or you could do it over a week. Depends what you could line up internally. So I guess for awareness, right? So campaign launch video, then we're getting people to really think about, how's my mental health? How do I relate to others? And the stigma around mental health. So this is a sort of digital piece here. Then 2, for knowledge, we were thinking these kind of surprise desk drops. Cool. Where we drop off this kind of reflective booklet that had some QR codes to some audio pieces in it. And then, there's some really cool stuff you could do with audio, mind you, as well. So if you wanted to simulate, I think one of the ideas we floated with this particular client they didn't go for was a workshop where we got actors to come and portray different levels of mental illness, and you had to practice your new skills on them whilst they were turn the dial right up. And they didn't go for that. That was a pretty cool idea though. But again, using audio, you can simulate things like anxiety. You can simulate with audio. So you could put someone through a 2-minute, piece experience. Yeah. And it kind of, I think when you start doing that stuff, there's a lot of stigma around it in learning. It's but what if, it's dangerous and what if we hurt someone's feelings or something? It's sure, you do need to be respectful, and you do need to be that. You need to put a warning on things, absolutely, like anything else out there, right? But I think sometimes, we need to be a bit more courageous in L&D, and we need to push to do some stuff, because in the end, it's fine. It's just that initial piece.
How do you do that? How do you influence stakeholders? Because that's something I admire about you is you're very confident about talking about it's all about the end user, and this is what's going to best help them. So it's actually pretty easy. If you talk about a solution, then everyone's going to be thinking about a solution, and you're not all going to be thinking in the same space. You're going to be thinking about a solution. Yeah.
So what it's about purpose. So it's about the why and the what, and it's about the outcomes, which is like the why and the when. You need to start a journey. It's how to lead a journey, right? You need to start all the way back there with a client. And if you can co-design and if you can build that together, so they know and feel that it is actually theirs, not mine, maybe not even the clients, but the people's, right? Yeah. You use a certain process and you do that. I can guarantee that you can take things probably a bit further than you ever have before. There's a lot of education involved in that. There's a lot of hand-holding. There's a lot of nurturing, lots of most of my time goes into nurturing relationships with on a project. That's what I spend most of my time doing, and less time actually designing. And the more I nurture the relationship, the easier the design aspect comes. And but I find that if you don't do that, then people, it's a bit like value and price. If you've heard this theory before. If people don't see the value, if you fail to communicate the value correctly, then they're going to get picky about the price, right? And then it's the other way, as well. So if the value is high enough, then the price just doesn't matter. Yeah. It really doesn't. If you can communicate exactly what this thing can do, because a lot of people don't realize just how powerful things can be. You can communicate that really well. And price isn't really an issue. And it's not so much about making money. It's about getting enough string to create enough impact, enough critical mass. That's what it's really about. That costs money. Money is one of the things it costs. It also costs time, blood, sweat, tears, effort, like serious amounts of effort to do a really good piece of work. You know what it's like. You really got to give it a component of yourself. You really got to put a lot of yourself into it. I'm kind of rattling on.
No, I think it's a good point, because what I would encourage people to do is run the workshops with clients. If you're a learning designer, you're not a solo little person off on yourself trying to solve the problem. You almost need to be that partner, integrate yourself. There are activities that you can run that have people in the room, co-create the content from that analysis and instructional design phase.
Totally.
And then even reviews are way easier. You spend all this time up front, and then feedback rounds, they're just like, oh yeah, we've got 10 comments, move on to the next stage. So
totally, dude, totally. Yeah, a lot of clients, some clients can check out in review processes. They just go yes and no, and if they're saying yes and no, they're kind of checked out. I think what's really important is like what happens pretty often, I think, is people go straight into designing solutions. They go for something called solution seduction. They go straight for the first thing, we could, it should. And what happens when you do that, it feels good in the moment. A lot of dopamine is released and everything. But what happens really is you're not opening the proper gateway. The proper gateway is getting really in touch with who you're designing for, getting the client to go, aha, client having aha moments is a great thing. That means that they now see things differently, because you do that the right way. The original business objectives never remain the same. And it's just the way it goes. I'm being pretty blunt with this stuff, but because we've got a limited amount of time, it's a bit more delicate than that. But you get where I'm going. Look, workshops, right? This is the third stage. Third stage of this was putting people through deep immersive workshops, because I still think face to face. I still think the human brain's the ultimate piece of technology. I think workshops are just the best thing since sliced bread, and I still think print is still the best thing since sliced bread. I love digital, don't get me wrong. I spent a lot of my life in digital, but a good workshop is life-changing. You walk out of a good workshop, you will feel your brain physically change shape. It hurts. It physically is painful. It's like getting a tattoo on your brain, and that's when it's good. You don't get that from digital always. It's pretty hard to do it with digital. It better be like Star Wars budget, I guess, to do that with digital. But
have you ever been impacted? So where you talk about that feel, that stuff from watching a movie or a show?
Yeah, Yeah. I've had my moments. Yeah, I'm big into film. I I was so passionate about it. I went and worked in film for a few years. So really into film and the power of it as a medium and what it can do. But then I think the problem with that is that's me. That's for me. So that's like, that's what I get. So I could tell you about my favorite films and go on about it for days, right? But then it's like, that's me, that's for me, and that's cool. That's my personal experience. But in this landscape of building adult learning for the masses, I've got to be a bit safer and try and stuff gets watered down because we're trying to serve more people. It's just about self-service. Like the kind of stuff I like to watch is an essay on, I don't know, American Psycho, and look at the little things. Like in American Psycho, did you know that nobody knows who each other is in that film? So they're always mistaking each other for somebody else. Huh. And it's this comment on society really that, like, it's not about a serial killer. The serial killer persona in that film, that is us as a society. It's how messed up we really are at some, spectrums of things, and that we don't know who each other are, and that we walk around with these, these facades and stuff. That's what I see when I watch American Psycho. But
that's cool.
Obviously, I'm a nerd. I'm a film nerd. I read into things. Yeah. So I'll chew through this as well. Yep. We thought, like, hey, writing a story is going to be really good as like they could write it and they could bring it to the group, to the workshop, and we could really hit some of those key, get people to open up and be a little bit vulnerable without being too forceful. Getting people to share, that's tough work to do that in a culture sometimes, to get people to be like okay with opening up. And to discuss and grow, especially if it is around a topic like mental health. Yeah. That's cool. Toolkits, of course. So we've got this sort of journal where they reflect daily, various types of resources, and a Slack channel to, I guess, communicate and align employees to various other policies and things around mental health. Yeah. Ask me questions and monthly health check-ins, stuff like that. So we're trying to kind of connect it as a bit of a whole for a kind of campaign. Yep. Let me grab the solution. No, I need to be in a different place. Where am I meant to be? I'm meant to be over here. Bear with me. I'm so ready for this, and now I'm like, there we go. Time. All good. Yeah, cool. So I'll show what I'll show you. I'll just show you the module piece really. So we put that sort of concept forward. Things changed a little bit. We ended up sort of doing this larger, more combined module that had quite a lot of things in it. What you just showed there, was that part of your proposal to win the work or to win the client or whatever, or was that after? So that was really midway between. Yeah. So that is coming to the table with, hey, we've had a couple of discussions. Yeah. We know what people kind of need to know, do, and sort of be. Yeah. But yeah, you're an expert. How would you do it? And then that's fundamentally a pitch doc, proposal doc. Yeah. Something like that. I don't put anywhere near as much text on one of those documents. It's about 3 or 4 years old. I don't these days. I'll just use. Sometimes I don't use a deck at all. Other days I just do an A4 sheet of paper. That's where I'm trying to get to. That's just cool. An A4 sheet of paper. Wow. That generates a conversation, which then allows me to. Because the fact is, as e-learning designers, if you can get in the room, you're. I mean, this is true for most, okay? I don't want to make assumptions, but you can get in the room and have a conversation to show that you're passionate and that you know what you're talking about. Your chances of, I guess, the chances of getting work increase, basically. Yeah. Because you're able to build trust, to listen, to connect. These things are really important in everything we do, I think. Stakeholder relationships are key. Yeah, you know, it's like, but it's also like to explain the work, you know, like explain the idea. Learning is complicated enough. The last thing it needs is more confusion and more noise around things, and to be able to get in a room and talk really pragmatically with people and have them throw something at you, and then you respond in a good way and connect and build a shared idea about something. It's a really good way to start something. Sometimes, like some projects just start from a single topic. They're like, oh, we kind of got this thing. I'm like, oh, you could just do a topic on this thing. You could sort of do this and that. And it ends up growing to 4 or 5 topics. And, you know, it's always a bit different, I guess.
So first impressions, love it. Love that graphic. So sleek, modern.
Yeah.
It's got movement going.
It does. Yeah, we really fell. This is around the time when I think I was just falling in love with SVG animations, about 3 or 4 years ago, and really was like, you know, just how can we use them in a tasteful way? Just little subtle, like breathing, pulsating things. This little fella, you know, he's just kind of like, kind of floating there. So this is probably a bit of a highlight. So stigma, right, was like this really ugly word, and we just were like, oh, how do we do stigma, prickly thing that no one wants to sort of do? So we kind of, you know, I guess ultimately we were subconsciously inspired by probably Monsters Inc. a little bit. Yeah. But, you know, stigma is one of these things where it's really scary if you don't know what it is and what's involved with it. And then as soon as you learn a little bit, as soon as there's someone with mental illness, for example, if you don't know anything about that mental illness, you might be a little bit apprehensive, a little bit scared. You're like, I don't know like what's happening or what to do or how to behave or how to act, right? Yeah. And this is an honest truth for a lot of people. This is why they can be you know, just kind of turn away from it. And so our job was to kind of break that and build a bridge between people so they weren't as scared of each other, you know, and use that as a way to try to get with, I guess, address some of these deeper mental health sort of stigma challenges. Mind you, mental health stigma is probably one of the hardest things you could ever pick to try to fix. It is what I learned on the research on this project. It is so deep and so embedded and so hard to get to. It is even the science, like a lot of the research, they still don't understand it. So it's pretty gnarly, like kind of topic to get into. I'm going to zip you through this relatively quick. I'll keep an eye on the clock there because I can rattle on. I tell you what. So we obviously sort of started with that kind of idea of like, hey, he's a scary monster. Oh no, it's not. He's actually really cute, really cuddly. He's kind of cool too. And like, that's, you know, we'll come back to that later. Yep. And then we start with the premise of, you know, you've got to fit your own mask first before you can help others, right? So so the first step of well-being on any level, no matter what it is to take care of yourself. I probably can't remember what any of the right answers are, and I'm not going to do it because I've done it 500 times. We would break space. I wanted to create space and motion as part of this design, as part of being conscious and well-being. So I'd have these little, you know, Martin Siegelman quotes, who was kind of like partly one of my gurus for this project. Like not literally, I think he wouldn't probably ever talk to me, but like I would read his stuff and I'll get really close to his work. And I do this on projects. If I'm in a topic or a domain, I get really close to people and their bodies of research, and I kind of live that. I bring that into my own life as I'm doing these projects that, you know, tend to last 8 to 12 weeks or something like that. Yeah. And it's one of the perks of the job. It's yes, you know, I get to learn all of this stuff. So what is well-being, hey? Well, this bloke, Mr. Martin Siegelman, he's pretty clever. He kind of has been researching, I guess, he's the world's leading expert in human flourishing, put it that way, right? And he's got a whole bunch of stuff going on, and he's created something called the PERMA model, which is pretty cool. So the way we built this, PERMA model stands for positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. And based on how you rate yourself on these things, will kind of give you an indication as to, I don't want to say if you're happy or not, but if you have vulnerabilities in your well-being. If you score really low on this stuff,
Yep.
yeah, it's important to pay attention, you know, like if you've got low positive emotions, low engagement with work, poor relationships, no meaning, and you don't really have any accomplishments, you know, whatever they are, it doesn't have to be work-based, could be anything at all. Yeah, then, you know, there's cause for concern. So it's a pretty good, pretty robust model. So we give everyone a bit of a definition about this stuff. Little perma, every letter's a little different. So we tried to show that in the animation and so forth. Now, the way we did it took a Likert system survey. And what happens here, this is like all custom code. I'll just kind of randomly answer. So I think I'm a 5 on that. I'm like a 2 on that. Oh, definitely a 7. Definitely a 3. And well-being questions are really interesting, by the way. There's a very specific way they do them. Very specific. It's never yes or no. It's always a Likert system, and it always has a gradual scaling of an odd number. There's a lot of other data that goes into that and the reasons why they do that.
Right.
And yeah, so these are all kinds of stuff I got to learn on this project. It was so rad. So yeah, here you go. So here's the results for the perma, you know, the perma piece really. And so what happens here? So anything you scored low on, you're going to get a dynamic piece of feedback for that.
Yeah.
And it's going to give you some stuff to go and do or to think about, to reflect on, to really think of that stuff. Because like these other ones that aren't an issue, like sure, there's some stuff you can do for that, but it's not really an issue. But if you've got a 2 on engagement, right, the regular development of our strengths, right, that's what we get through engagement. We tend to be engaged and attracted to things that connect with our strengths. And so by being engaged, you're simply working on your strengths, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's just a natural way that human beings kind of are. So we tend to be disengaged by things that, yeah, don't interest us because we're crap at them, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, when you break it down like this, you learn some of this stuff. It's really, it teaches you a lot about how human beings kind of operate and what they avoid and how to work with that. And it's one reason as well, stuff like that, I think why learning needs to be more open and more dynamic and more like learner driven, because it's you can't design for one person and expect everyone to, you know, to kind of adapt and thrive. So then we move on to some knowing when you're at your best really stuff. So this is the burn curve, if you've ever heard of the burn curve. So basically high stress or high energy versus high pressure. The sweet spot's right here. This is fully cooked. Like this is like, yeah, I'm burnt out. And this is like, oh my God, I'm going to quit. I'm so bored. Yeah.
Right.
So too little stress, optimum amount of stress versus like way too much stress. And it's really teaching people to reflect on, you know, on that this curve exists and help them not only identify their own journey, but where others might be at too.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because, yeah.
Especially as
And
a supervisor, you could tap in and go, yeah, they're not busy enough.
that's right.
It's probably work related, but then it's impacting home, other relationships and stuff.
Yeah. What happens sometimes, and I've seen this, it's really interesting. People are left unengaged for a long period of time, and then they get so entrenched in a low amount of stress that they appear to be burning out. They appear to be as if they're overcooked, but really what's happening, they're going to negative, they're going the other way. And then so what happens is people don't fix that because they think they're burnt out, so they give them less and less and less and less until they're just they just sort of disappear. So it's what can happen to people, you know. It happens at both ends of the spectrum with some of this stuff. So yeah, I didn't mean to scare you.
No, I love this stuff. I find it fascinating. So
it is really interesting. It's kind of like, you know, so what is stigma and stigma in teams, stigma at work? And so we need to define these things for our learners. We really do. So we're just kind of giving them some clear definitions about what these things are, what they might include, and how they might impact. Yeah, this is probably the most interesting piece. So basically, my boss at the very start had this passing thought. I think we were ideating. It's like, oh, I should do one of those things I saw on TV where they flash things in front of you and you have to pick really quickly. And yeah, so we built one of these by hand. It's called an implicit association test, and is probably by far one of the most advanced bits of development I've ever been involved with. It was incredibly difficult. Like I was like, my walls were covered in stuff, and I was trying to, But here's the general premise. The general premise is we're going to take you through a series of phases in a test where you'll have a very limited amount of time. In fact, less than a few milliseconds to make a decision about whether or not a word is a. We do it on a few different fronts. So is this mental health illness safe or dangerous? Is this word a mental illness or a physical illness? We flip it on a few different fashions, and I could I'll go on to explain how the IAT really works, but would be here for a long time, and it honestly isn't that interesting explaining the actual science of it. But what is important to know is that you're basically about using, I don't know, under 10% of your conscious brain. All right, it's arguable how much exactly. Now your brain, your subconscious brain especially, is making decisions every sort of 0.2 milliseconds thereabouts. You will judge someone whether or not they are safe or dangerous subconsciously without even knowing it, within a very, very short amount of time. So the whole purpose of this IAT test isn't to give you a true, accurate reading on how biased you are. We can't actually do that, and the test has been debunked as being a really accurate kind of, like, you can't do that to people. You can't say, do this one test and then you're 60% biased. It's not accurate, right?
Yeah. But
it is somewhat marginally accurate. So what we've used it for is to show people that bias exists, because a lot of people don't think it exists, and fair enough, it's this invisible thing. Did they just make it up? It's like inside my head, apparently. I can't, So this is a really hard one to build and design, and I guess the experience of it. It took us quite a while to crack it, I won't lie. So we have some step through instructions. That's how bad it really is. And I had to partner with a organizational psychologist to get everything right.
Wow.
Yeah, a few other factors. So I'll give this a shot. I'll do section 1.
Okay.
So I'm going to use the keyboard because it's quite quick. Yeah, so I'm actually... So what happens is, if I'm too slow as well, so one of the challenges with these tests, so I'm pushing left and right, whatever the word in the center is, I have to make a choice left or right, and I have to do it as quick as possible. The problem we had was that people were too slow, and that would just destroy the entire test score.
Yeah.
Got to do it real quick.
So the functionality of them pressing the keyboard, they were too slow, which skewed it all.
Yeah, because you've got to make a decision within, I think we ended up being a little more lenient. I think we made it 0.75 of a second.
Okay.
The real test is it's under 0.5 of a second. So, because if you don't make a decision within 0.5 of a second, then it's not an unconscious decision.
Yes.
So we're trying to basically use the subconscious brain with it. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. So I'll just quickly zip through this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not actually picking now because I just want to get to the results. Okay.
Okay.
So you'll see this.
Conscious is unbelievable.
Oh my God. Yeah. When you really focus and really test, on this, like, it's quite interesting. It's quite amazing what happens. You can feel your brain resisting and trying to fight you. And you can look up the IAT online and do it. So it's invented by Harvard by a fella called Mr. Greenwald. And
I did it actually because we used it in recruitment bias. So building the awareness, we put this into one of the modules to help people, and I was testing it, and I was like, oh God.
There you go. Exactly. So yeah. So they there's so many ways you can use that technology and repurpose it, but it is really, complex. So apparently, so this is kind of, you know.
What does stigma say about you, mate?
So apparently I am a low result mental illness. As a result, tends to suggest that you are more accepting of the world and people around you, and you see people for their true potential.
Oh, nice. Pretty accurate.
So we really worked hard on this feedback. So we had to be incredibly careful about how, if you're ever going to try something like this, you need to be really thoughtful, deliberate about how you approach this type of stuff, especially if you're telling people certain things. So it's nothing to play around with. It was quite intimidating to approach, but this is what comes with trying to do progressive work. So like, yeah, I'm going to move on. And here's our little friendly little dude, by the way. It's pretty cool.
He's scary after all.
Nah, exactly, right? So the other piece was strategies. So there's not a whole heap of strategies. You'll hear people talk about strategies and behaviors for bias. It's pretty easy to get into a debate when talking about that stuff. So my stance on human bias is that you can't actually do anything about it, because that's the caveman inside you. You know, it's there to actually save your life. It's there so you don't stop breathing when you're asleep. You know, it's all these sorts of things, right? So you can't actually stop it. What you can do is think of bias as like a way of thinking that creates a negative impact potentially. Mm-hmm. So what you need to do is you need to put stuff in front of your decision making that limits the opportunity for bias to have a negative impact.
Interesting.
So a good one, for example, is availability bias. It's a good one because no one ever knows it's happening. They think their best idea is their best idea, but really their best idea is just the last thing that they looked at, or the last thing that they read, or the last thing that was in their head. And they don't know that that's what's going on. And it's really hard to know that's what's going on. And so, especially when you need to make decisions and be confident and stuff like that, it can be very difficult, right? So the best thing you can do in that instance, for example, best strategy of behavior is get a second opinion. You know, get a second opinion. That's a simple little thing. So you just got to be careful with how it's done, but it's easy to fix in the modern world. It's just be collaborative. Don't work in isolation. You know, this is how you can sort of help overcome human bias sometimes. So what we tried to do was develop a number of cards to help combat this stuff. And these are like the 5 like commandments, really. I mean, put it that way. So where we really landed was using a person-first kind of language. Being aware of your stereotypes, getting people to reflect on what stereotypes they might have, in a non-threatening way to them. There's nothing worse than pointing the finger at someone going, oh, that's a stereotype. Their brain just shuts down and just defense just comes up, you know. So we want to be very gentle with how we kind of do that. Be aware of what you say. So, I mean, in research, a study with British 14-year-olds, the teens came up with over 250 terms to describe mental illness. The majority of these were negative. Wow. So I probably skipped the other ones. I shouldn't have done that. We put so much effort into research on this. I researched and found all of these insights backed by evidence-based research to create these, I don't know, these like everything inside this module. That's why it's quite skinny and it's not super fat. It was like it's just kind of kept compounding and compounding and compounding down to the things that really, really mattered. I mean, given that 1 in 4 adults experience a mental illness, you're likely to offend someone without even being aware of it. So we're trying to really make it relevant to people as best as we can. Be sensitive, show empathy. Number 5, be a role model. So changing attitudes takes time, and stigma is often fueled by a lack of awareness and inaccurate information. So that's people not understanding a mental illness is what causes the stigma. You know, it's like a corona, the C word, sorry, is like like there's just some of the craziest stuff going around about it because of all the misinformation. There still is. A lot of people don't understand what the virus is, and that's fair enough. It's a true chaotic problem, but it creates a lot of like a lot of finger pointing, a lot of blame, a lot of like, you know, this and that. And it's all from misinformation. And so mental health stigma is no different. Neither is physical health stigma or any stigma really for that matter. So it's kind of what creates it in the first place. So there we have it. Yeah, I mean that's
beautiful.
That's what you get. That's me taking you through a piece of work. That was about 4 years old or so. Yeah, that one got a LearnX, of course. I think we got the wellbeing piece on that one, so it's pretty well received. I mean, it's one of my favourite projects, I think, for a couple of reasons. The first one was the premise is a true wicked problem. It's a true wicked problem. Fix mental health stigma. Love it. Cool. Give me something impossible and we'll get us halfway. Love that. The second was had an amazing client. Just like, yeah, absolute dream client who's like, at times was pushing me a little bit.
Yep.
So I was scared. I was like, can we try this thing? And they're like, I think we can do more than that. It's like, okay. Wow. Yeah. So, yeah. And again, I got to work with one of my mates I used to work with on this. He's such gun graphic designer. So he comes through with these, you know, these shades of these pinks and these like this warm, mellow, like kind of, you know, experience thing that calms you down a bit and makes you feel like, I always thought that module feels a little bit like you're in the womb. Like, you know, it's like, it's just got that like, sort of safe,
comforting,
comforting space to talk about a really difficult topic, and that's intentional. You know, that's like the kind of people that I got to work with on it. Like everything was coming through intentionally, and I think that's another reason I like this project is that the deeper intentions of the design came through pretty well. Sometimes they don't always, kind of like rays of light. You start with like this sun and then you shoot these rays of light and maybe 2 or 3 of them make them through, but the other ones get crushed along the way for some reason. But this one, yeah, I think we did pretty well.
Yeah.
I think, so I remember there was moments on that project I was a little bit scared because I was worried about what people might think about, say, what if the IAT thing failed, or what if offend someone, or what if I'm incorrect about something about a mental illness or about human bias. Like these are things I had to learn in order to be the instructional designer and conceptor of this project. And yeah, terrifying stuff, but it's totally doable. And the best thing you can really do is really do your best and then get someone to double check.
Yeah.
And just constantly be consistent with that process. Just get someone else, just recruit people to soundboards, small sections or larger sections, and get their input on stuff. You know, what else? Yeah, I think, you know, I think like, you know, strictly speaking, this module, will it address business outcomes? It's like, yeah, I think it'll tick a few of them off.
Yeah.
Will it make a fundamental difference to a human's life? Maybe not, you know. So it's one of those things. I think it goes to show that digital is great, but it's a small piece. It's a small piece of the bigger thing. So ideally, this whole movement, this whole vehicle, this whole way of thinking needs to be physical in the environment. It needs to be tangible and touchable, and needs to be workshops, and it needs to be sound, and it needs to be all of these other things to create the sustaining change. You know, and I think that's really important for L&D to, you know, to remember. It's not just about 20-minute modules. It's so much more. And I think learning designers should be doing anything from changing office interiors through to, I don't know, designing. One thing I've always wanted to do is design furniture. Like the chair of uninclusivity. It's this really horrible chair that only one person can sit on. And, you know, and it just gives you a whole sensation, a whole feeling of what it's like to be unincluded. Or maybe it's like 5 chairs that are around this way, and then there's just one crappy chair that's like turned away and you're forced to sit in it and you can't see everyone. You know,
Wow.
more effective than any module. You know, I really think that learning design needs to stop being so obsessed with digital and just broaden its horizons. It's so much more than just module design. It's in everything. Learning is everywhere. It's vaporous and you'll never escape it. One thing I've learned in recent times is, you know, I spend a bit of time in the other world now, which isn't really learning focused, but more human-centred design, service design, you know, kind of world. They're still designing learning. They are. What they do is learning at so many levels. It's also change and a whole bunch of other stuff that's a bit more exciting than L&D too. But what I want to say is that everywhere is doing learning in different shapes and forms, and it's just a different flavour. It's a different thing. So people in L&D are very transferable to other areas and domains, and other areas and domains are very transferable to L&D.
Yeah.
So it's really something just to go in looking like that. Don't start with the storyline template. Don't start with this. Don't start with that. Go in like that and really try to take a risk and figure out, you know. And I find their secret, in a sense, is being really disciplined and controlled with how you set up, structure, and execute your initial project meetings.
Yes.
So I get really particular sometimes. So some places have just I guess a traditional kickoff, and they go through a bunch of things and so on and so forth. I try a couple of different things. So I try to have a couple of short, really like decent kind of conversations at the start with the right people, draw that together into a conclusion of some kind. That informs me then what the workshop should really be about, rather than going in cold-faced. Then from there, I might actually spin out 4 workshops on purpose. I might, rather than a 6-hour workshop, I might do 3 2-hour workshops. I'll only plan the first one. I'll do the first one, then I'll see where it's taken me, and then I'll plan the next one. So sometimes what I'm learning is actually design is really about a state of being, and that it's not a state of doing. It's totally a state of being. And to explain that in depth, what I mean is you do the first workshop, you see where it leads you, then you design the next one. You don't have this shiny, bulletproof process, right? It's different in development. Development is a different story. This is, you know, way before we're talking about burning big amounts of money and, you know, this is research. So it's really, I see that whole initial phase as design research, and I treat it like design research. Yes. And sometimes I'll change the mediums. I don't always do the same format. Sometimes I do, I don't know, a whole bunch of interviews versus traditional workshops, sometimes a co-design. You know, I want to do some other crazy stuff like, it's like just put these like posters up. Like it's kind of like a social graffiti poster. Basically, you put posters up around the place and you ask people a question. Like if you want to improve toilets or bathrooms, for example, just put a poster in there with an anonymous pen on it and say, what sucks about this bathroom? And people tell you. They'll say music, coffee machine, lighting, you know, all that stuff. And you're like, sweet. You know. And so I think like, I was thinking about this the other day. I saw the National Gallery Victoria. They kind of like had this campaign about redesigning. They're going to redesign the whole gallery, right. And they kind of made it look like it was going to be a community thing. It wasn't in the end. But when I first saw it, I got really excited because what I thought they were doing is I thought they were asking the public to come down and co-design the public space. Yeah. And I was like, dude, that is so cool. So cool. And we should be doing that, I think, like co-designing more and more. not just with clients, but also with the people who represent, people we're designing for.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, right, it's their culture. It's not yours as a manager or a leader. It's actually their culture. I mean, it's everyone's culture, right? But they're the ones who, like, ultimately, like, if the frontline workers, for example, aren't doing the culture thing that they should be doing, such as, like, I don't know, not stealing and
Yep.
whatever the thing is, it always gets blamed on management for not walking the walk and people not having anything to follow. And they're not wrong, right? They're not wrong. But the only reason it's like that all of a sudden it seems to be a big issue is because the people at the bottom aren't doing what they should be doing. So fundamentally it's their culture, right? So you've got to give it to them.
Yeah. Leaders
can lead, and then then they have to step back and follow everyone else on that journey. So so buddy, I'll stop talking. But yeah, do you have any questions on that stuff? I mean, I just kind of get going on a bit of a rant sometimes with that stuff.
Oh, I wish I had like all year with you. No, one of the questions I was going to say, it's an incredible piece of work considering it was done over 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And much respect to you and the team that worked on that, and the client being in that space to allow those kind of projects. And you're probably like, yeah, we did 50 million projects like that year. But I just think that's really cool.
Yeah.
But I know that you've evolved a lot since that time. So what would you do differently if you were to evolve the project or tackle it again differently?
That's a really good question. So a few things have changed as well. So I don't do full-time instructional design anymore. I stepped off the tools. I'm a design strategist these days. I'm doing bigger pieces. I'm still doing concepts and strategic concepts and a lot of detail, a lot of workshopping, a lot of design research, but then I'm handing over to instructional designers. Okay.
Yeah.
What I would have done differently is a really tough question, because I like that project. I wouldn't show you something I don't like.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I was like having, had that much humor in me. Yeah. So, but what I probably would have done differently, okay, so I probably would have leveled out the complexity at the start a bit. So I think I probably took things, I have a habit, and this is all part of becoming better and better at one's craft. You really need to practice integration and self-reflection. And as I do that, one thing I learn is that I have a habit of getting too deep into detail. But the annoying thing is I'm actually a big picture person, but I will go for the detail because I love it too. But I'm actually naturally a big picture person. The details actually physically exhaust me. Things like writing feedback and writing 50, 60, 70 pages of copy in like 2 days for a storyboard. Exhausting work for me. But doing 20 hours of workshops and speaking and then doing strategic work and things like, and coming up with really crazy, daring, dangerous concepts, and then mitigating clients and mitigating risks and working with budgets, all this stuff just pumps me up. I can do it for 20 hours a day. So what I would have done differently probably back then is probably tried to mitigate the detail, I think, especially in the factors of the research. It's not a very good answer. It's really not a good answer.
Because what that is proving is that the effort that you put into the analysis and the research was worth the time.
Yeah. I think one thing too that I've learned over I'm 35 tomorrow, by the way. Yeah.
Woo!
So I've learned a couple of things. But one of the good things I have learned is that you can do anything, basically, right? You can do just about anything. It's just the things you're not that good at are going to take a hell of a lot longer and cost you a lot of blood and pain. And that's fine. And sometimes it's just like that, right? Everyone's got jobs and projects, and some parts are a lot harder than other parts on those projects. And that's a strength thing, and also the conditions and stuff. And so probably what I learned from that project is I can sort of do, things holistically and very specifically and individually. But I think sometimes at the end of the day as well, you've really got to think about, about sustainability, about like, can you do that for every single project? Can you really, and whilst you're young, of course you can, right? You're invincible.
But after
as soon,
tomorrow,
yeah,
no way.
Tomorrow, you start to learn that actually you're better off collaborating with someone who's good at that stuff. And that's just kind of the direction I'm going now, and trying to be less about me and what I can do, and more about being a connector, an open facilitator, that floater kind of thing, really.
Yeah.
It's just a shift for me in how I used to be. I used to be very like, my mind, I had all of my skills, all of my meta skills, they were all lined up and categorized, and they would have star ratings and courses and certifications, and I'd work very, very hard to work on my weaknesses, very, very particularly, you know. And it's hard work. It's really hard work, and not far and whatever. But yeah, now I'm like a bit more like, okay, so who am I really? What are my real strengths, and what do people recognize me for?
Mm-hmm.
And where do I want to grow? You know, what's worth doing the study to midnight every night, the work the weekends, what's worth that? And I've found, for me, it's human-centered design, and getting really good at that, which is even more confusing because that's about almost knowing nothing. So that's a whole nother conundrum, like we'll talk about another time. But to me, that's about being, a person designing for other people, and it is about knowing stuff, but it's really not letting that get in the way. Because it can so easily get in the way, you know. Yeah. Well, buddy,
Nick, you're a legend. People are going to hate me because I have to tell the audience now that I got to cut Nick off because I have a hard deadline to get off the phone, basically. But
you go, do good.
This is, you can tell that Nick has an incredible mind, and what I really appreciate and what you role model so well is invest in yourself. And I think that just shows through how you communicate, how you think, what you're doing, what you're experimenting with. You're not afraid to experiment, and I love that. And if you want, like, we'll put all the links to things in the description, but Nick's pretty active on LinkedIn, and if you follow his posts, he'll change your mind. You'll walk away from the American Psycho movie a little bit. You'll start analyzing like Nick, which is pretty
differently. You'll see everything differently. Next time you go to work, the supermarket, you name it. Look, anyone's welcome to reach out to me anytime. I'm into other various groups, think tank groups and stuff like that. Always, the big thing I crave is an intellectual conversation, you know, and we've had one today. It's what fills my cup, and I'm always open to meeting people and sharing, offloading what I know, because it just makes room for me to go and get more. You know what you are? Do you know Tim Ferriss? He's like the human health experiment. I reckon you're the human mind experiment. That's actually very interesting you say that. I was looking at that at his stuff just the other day. I was actually going to invest and buy his books and stuff. But I guess the final takeaway, invest in yourself. No one can take it away from you. You know, nothing can. So it's been awesome to catch up, awesome to chat. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for giving me the time.
I don't want to hang up, but I have to. I really appreciate you.
You're very welcome.
Thanks everyone for watching the Belvista Studio Show. We will have Nick back because he's an amazing human, and all the strategy I want to learn more from you. But thank you so much, Nick.
You're very welcome. See you guys. Bye.